So I have both the Cranborne Audio Carnaby HE2 Legacy version and the standard black version. I'm going to put them down over here because they're quite heavy. Now, the question a lot of people ask me, and actually the first question I'm going to ask people is, which do you prefer, black or silver face? I'm more keen on the black. And that's mainly because black is the kind of the majority of my gear. Pretty much every piece of gear in this mastering chain is black. I think I'm going to put the black version in. Now I've got two black versions and I've got one of the legacy versions. I'm pretty much certain I'm gonna stick with the black version. But what I wanted to test today was, is there actually an audible difference between the black version and the legacy version? I'm told there isn't. So basically the differences here are price. The black version is 1,800. The legacy version I think is around 2,500. So you've got a £700 difference there, but what are you getting for £700 worth of difference? The legacy version, limited edition. There's only 100 made. The other difference is the legacy version is built in the UK. I'm not sure where the standard version's built, but it's not hand built at Carnaby, at Cranborne Audio. The legacy version also comes with a flight case. Now that's not going to interest many people. It certainly didn't interest me, but I actually found a good use for it. I don't know if you can see under there. I actually used the flight case under there. So it actually came in useful because it is actually a really nice flight case. That's the differences. That's the only differences between them, and their aesthetics. They're all about looks. You know, I'm torn between it. I do love the look of the silver one, but I also love the look of the black one. I love the middle section of the black one. And I know myself. I'm probably going to put in the black version. But what I actually want to test today, and this is something that a few people have asked me, is there any audible difference between the two? Are they basically the same unit? And can you actually hear a difference between them? Now, there's most probably if there is a difference, this is my kind of fault, and I haven't tested this yet, and I'm going to do this in a second. My honest thoughts are that two legacy versions will probably sound equally as different as a legacy version and a standard version. They're definitely, I don't know, but they probably wouldn't know. I don't imagine there to be any difference. So there's only one way to find out this. And when we talk about audible difference, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to run the same audio, one through the standard version, one through the legacy version, and then see if I can audibly hear a difference between the two. I'm also going to use Plugin Doctor with both of them, set them up both exactly the same, and then compare them and see if the curves are identical, which in theory they should be. But yeah, what I want to test today for my own purpose is, which one do I keep in here? Because if it's just based on looks, I'm putting the black one in. If there's an audible difference and the legacy version is in fact better and sounds better, and in blind tests I'm picking the legacy version every time, night and day difference, then the legacy version stays in here and I put this one into Studio C. So let's jump in and let's find out. So what we're going to first of all do is look at how each unit matches up in terms of looking at it in Plugin Doctor. Now, bear in mind that these are obviously two different units, and often when you compare two units that are exactly the same, there are slight differences. There always is. But for this purpose, let's compare these, and I've got the settings set up exactly the same on the legacy version and on the standard version. So first of all, let's activate the legacy version in the low band. So that there is the low band. Now if we switch to the standard version, there's minimal difference. There's a little bit more information around, what's that, around 50 to 100 hertz, up to 200 hertz. You'll see a little bit more gain. So there's a little bit more on the standard version. It's probably not really that noticeable, but we'll find that out when we run audio through. See if we can hear any of these differences that are being highlighted inside Plugin Doctor. So let's look now at the mid band. We'll turn on the Legacy version. So that's the mid band on the Legacy version, and now we'll switch to the standard version. Tiniest. It goes down minimal, probably about 50 hertz. It's slightly different. So there's not much in that. Now let's look at the high band. So on the high band, we'll look at the Legacy version first. Now the Legacy version looks like that. Now let's look at the standard version. So noticeably, the standard version is shifted more to the high end, and it has a smoother curve. It's got more up in the air band, which I quite like about that. But there is a difference there. Yeah, there's also a gain difference. So you're getting 2.5 dB of gain increase on the Legacy version, whereas you're getting maybe 2 dB. You're getting more than 2.5 actually. You're getting maybe 3 dB. Let's match that. Turn the standard version up. Yeah, I mean, I'm inclined to say, looking at a graph, that I'm preferring the curve on the standard version. I feel like that's going to be maybe going to be noticeable when we listen to the audio demos in a sec. What you're maybe going to hear is a little bit more high frequency information on the standard version compared to the Legacy version. So that's interesting. Let me just pull that back to where it was. So now what we'll do is we'll activate all 3 bands, and this is what the Legacy version looks like with all 3 bands activated. And let's switch to the standard version. Back to the Legacy version. So the main difference here, that's Legacy version, standard version. So there's a little bit, there's more gain increase, maybe, I don't know, roughly a dB, maybe dB and a half. There's about dB and a half difference there in the high end, but on the standard version you're getting more up into the top, into the air band, which could be interesting. So now the best thing to do is actually run some audio through these, and I reckon you might hear that air band. You might hear a little bit more up in the top, a little bit more of a sizzle, so listen out for that. But you should, in theory, you should hear the low end be almost identical, and the mid-range pretty much identical. The big difference here, I think, is in that high band, which is interesting. So let's find out just how much difference there is in these two. Right, so now what we're going to do is basically go through the audio recordings that we've just captured. So I've captured the low, mid and high band soloed. I've also captured the low and the mid band together, then the high and the mid band together, and then all the bands together as well. So we just go through them and see how much difference there actually is between the Legacy version and the standard version. So we'll start with the high band on its own. Now, bearing in mind when we looked at Plugin Doctor, there was more information up in the higher frequencies, and you had like almost a scoop on the Legacy version. So let's see if we can hear that high frequency definitively, if you can hear it in the standard version. So let's check it out. Right, you can hear that. Now, if you can't, listen to the hi-hats. Just listen to the hi-hats and listen to how much more information there is up in that high band. So in regards to the high band, I actually prefer the standard version because you're getting that little bit more information up there, and that's a good thing because it isn't, but it's almost like a little bit more of the air band. So I like that, and I prefer that on the standard version. So there's a difference, and the thing with this is you know, these differences is that two units could have differences, not maybe as exaggerated as that, but it's not uncommon for two pieces of hardware that come from the same factory to have some slight differences between them. So let's now look at the low band, and bearing in mind when we looked at it on Plugin Doctor, it was pretty much bang on. There was a slight on the, I think it was on the standard version, slightly more around 100 Hertz. So there shouldn't be too much difference here. I'm going to say there's not a lot in that at all. So the low band in particular is pretty much the same. Now the mid-range, this one I expect to be slightly different. Let's check it out. Right, there's a difference there. Now listen in particular to the clap. Listen to the clap. Register how that clap sounds on the first one, being the standard version, and then when it switches to the Legacy version, you'll notice the clap just in the kind of higher mids kind of comes down a touch. So yeah, concentrate on that. Now you can definitely hear, I mean, it's still quite subtle, but you can hear there's a definite difference between the kind of the brightness that's in that clap. You can hear that. So let's now go over to the high and mid band. Now bear in mind that these are maybe going to get a bit harsh, because we're obviously driving and pushing these bands pretty much as, not as far as they can go, but we're pushing them quite hard, abnormally hard to what you would do when you would process this sort of beat. So this is the high and the mid band together. There's a lot more up in the top end. The top up in the high mids and the highs are, yeah, there's a lot more going on up there. So next, there's a definite difference in terms of the mids and the highs. The lows I think are pretty much the same. So this here is the mids and the lows. So let's see how much difference there is there. I don't imagine there to be too much in the low end, because the low end is pretty much bang on the same between the two. So let's check this one out. Isn't a huge amount of difference there. It's minuscule. I wouldn't say there's a lot of difference in the, when comparing the low and low mid. And the reason I'm doing the two combined is because the way this EQ works is utilizing the mid and the low, or the mid and the high. They create different curves in themselves. So the last one we're going to do is the low band, mid band and high band, all three bands active. And we'll start with playing the standard version and then switch into the legacy version. So let's see what it's saying. Now there's differences, yeah. I actually find on that version, the legacy version sounded a little bit brighter. Yeah, there's big differences here. So, I mean, the conclusion really is that yeah, the high band in particular, the standard version has a lot more going on up in the higher frequencies, a smoother curve when it comes to the kind of real top end. On the legacy version, that's more rolled off. It's more like a bell, and the standard version's more like a nice smooth shelf. The low end's pretty much identical. The mid range, I feel like you've got more gain. One thing I have noticed with when comparing these is when you push basically 10 on the standard version is maybe 7 on the, no, so 10 on the standard version is a lot louder. So you let's say you're getting 15 dB of gain, or 10 dB of gain. On the legacy version, that's registering at like 8 dB of gain. So there is a difference. Like, I feel you can go further with this one. And look, it might, I don't think there's any claims that they're identical, but it seems that what's really good about it is if you had the legacy version and the standard version together, they are different, and that's really good, because it says that the legacy version isn't just a different faceplate, a different design, and you know, it's different in the way that it sounds in some ways, and one doesn't sound better than the other. Arguably, for me, I feel the standard version sounds a little bit better just because it has more information in the top end. But then again, it might just be my units like that. But the low end sounds pretty much identical. The mid range, slightly more highs in the mids, I think. But this is a good thing that this unit's different to this unit, because that's nice. Because look, if you're looking to buy one and you want something that goes a little bit brighter, that's the version to get. If you want something that's more pushed towards the high mids and doesn't have it doesn't fill in the kind of airband frequencies, go with the legacy version. So there's subtle differences here, and that's why I wanted to test this. So I would say I am going to leave the black version in, because I find that to be, not that it's the better version, I'm keen on having those upper frequencies. And look, as well, is you've got the high cut on there as well, so you know, you could roll that high cut off, and basically use the high cut to shape that version exactly the same as that version, most probably. So yeah, but this is why I like doing these tests, because I've said, you know, I've been told they're pretty much identical, and they pretty much are. The whole, you know, whenever anyone's asked me what's the difference between the two, I've said, you know, they just look different. You know, one comes in a flight case, one's hand built in the UK at Cranborne Audio. The other one, I don't know where it's built, but it's it's just a black version, and you get a flight case with the legacy version. And I've always said that it's just a case of looks, and they don't have any differences in sound, because, you know, that's what I was always led to believe, and that's what I thought. So this is why I like doing these sorts of tests, because I like to understand and be able to give the right information over. And yeah, I think this video really does, because it's not often, you know, not often that people have both units sitting in the same studio. Like, literally, that one's staying in here. The legacy version's going to go into Studio C, and then another black version's going into Studio A. So yeah, interesting.